I went out for dinner one night with my partner at the time, and after we finished eating, they said, well, let's go play some pokies. One came out in front, and I thought, oh, this is easy. A couple of weeks later, and walked past a pokie venue and thought, oh yeah, I'll just pop in. It's just a bit of fun. And I lost. I only meant to spend 20 or 30. I lost that and thought, no, I'll put another 20 and I'll win it back. And that's pretty much it. Once I got started, I found I just couldn't stop. I very quickly stopped enjoying it. As the money that I'd lost went up, my need to get that back increased with it. And I guess for me, the greater that those losses got, the less able I was to tell anyone. Did I want to tell people what was going on? Absolutely I did. But I was so scared of actually admitting to what I was doing.
You're watching The World from Below, and that was a clip of Tom Cummings talking about his experience of poker machine addiction. Tonight we're speaking with Charles Livingstone from the School of Public Health at Monash University and Jemal Ahmet from Whittlesea Community Connections. I want to focus now on the problem of addiction to poker machines specifically. Jemal, is problem gambling an addiction like alcoholism or drug dependence?
Well, the little I know about the research that has been done in this area, there's been some evidence produced that has shown that, I suppose, the chemical reactions that occur when you get a rush from gambling is very similar to those you get from Class A drugs like heroin or ice. And that, so if that's true, then this makes problem gambling not an issue of choice, but an issue of health. And I think that sort of gives, I suppose, organisations like ourselves a responsibility to respond adequately to that. So we're not dealing with people who gamble and make poor choices, but we're dealing with people who are the victims of a product that is addictive and harmful. And I think that sends a clear message to really not, you know, to government as well, that there needs to be intervention and there needs to be adequate regulation to protect people who unwittingly become victims of that kind of product.
Charles, tell us what we know about what goes into the process of designing machines and how they orient towards addicting people to the technology.
Okay, well, there's a whole lot of tricks that poker machines can use. As I said earlier, they're based on principles of conditioning, operant and classical conditioning principles, so that's the sort of the basic architecture of any slot machine or poker machine. But on top of that, there are lots of little tricks. One of them is called losses disguised as wins. So on modern machines, you can play on multiple lines. Now, most people who use poker machines regularly always play on the maximum number of lines because, hey, if you're playing a poker machine and you see a prize won on a line that you're not playing, it's like the end of the world. So you really want to do that. So that instantly increases the amount of money you spend. On a 1 cent machine where you've got 50 lines, people who are sort of serious about playing pokies will always bet on 50. So that means you increase the stake from 1 cent to 50 cents immediately. Now, the other side effect of that is that when you bet on all those lines, you might get a win on one of those lines. So you bet your 50 cents and you get 10 credits back. So you get 10 cents back. So you've actually lost 40 cents in that transaction. But the machine still goes off as though you just won big. So that reinforcement, the reinforcement of getting a little prize, the machine carries on about it, it looks like you've won something, but you've actually lost. So we call that a loss disguised as a win. What that actually does is it about doubles the amount of prizes that people win on the machine, thus increasing the reinforcement and thus making them much more attractive to people. The other thing that game designers put a lot of effort into is the music. Now, I know it sounds slightly odd, but there are people who spend their entire lives constructing music. You know, there's no minor notes, everything always ends in a cheerful sound. They're carefully cultivated to adhere to the theme of the game. And if anyone has spent any time, again, in a pokie venue, then what you'll see is that there are themes for all sorts of different demographics. So there's machines that have cuddly dolphins on them, which were very popular for a long time. People used to scratch the dolphins' little noses to get them good luck. When you win a prize, the dolphins leap through the sea and give you all sorts of good feelings. There's now a lot of machines which are drawn from movie and TV shows like Sex and the City, for example. I saw one the other day that Ainsworth have designed, which is a Sound of Music game. You know, when you win, Maria sings "The Hills Are Alive." So, I mean, these sound silly, but all of these little tricks add up, and what they're focused on is firstly making the machine attractive to someone, and secondly, with different schedules of reinforcement, providing people with the sort of schedule which appeals to them most. So people who are macho have a sort of shogun game with a guy with a big sword, and it will have an irregular payoff pattern. There'll be a lot of variation in the payoff patterns, and that will adhere to their sort of macho image of betting $1 a spin at the minimum, but maybe winning $1,000 in very irregularly. People who are a little bit more conservative will have what they call a drip feed machine, where you get lots of very small but reasonably regular payoffs, and so over time your stake will decline. You still end up with no money, it just takes a bit longer. So all of these things are put into designing the machine, and all of them are focused on a particular demographic, and what they hope to do is to provide a machine that will appeal to every characteristic within the venue. And they do it very well, and they make a lot of money. I might say they've also got perfect data. They've got the world's biggest laboratory, all the gambling venues of the world. They design a new game, they put it out there, they see how it goes, they get perfect data about how it performs. If it works, it stays there. If it doesn't, they pull it and start again. And they're doing that constantly. One of the major manufacturers in Australia, Aristocrat, spends about $150 million a year on R&D. So we have serious money being invested in this sort of work, which is essentially designed to make a machine which is so attractive you don't want to lose it until you spend all your money.
Jemal, you were talking before about Epping Plaza and the venue there, which has a turnover of $20 million a year, I think you said.
Just from the pokies.
Just from the pokies. Now, there seems to be some relationship between social disadvantage and then presence of machines. Is it people who don't have a lot to lose, losing the most?
Look, I think communities, particularly in the outer suburbs, and I would imagine this applies to rural communities too, have less choice about recreation and leisure than people who live closer to the CBD, if you like, and that impacts on really where people go for their leisure. So I think, and the industry is cynical about how it creates those environments and where those locations for their poker machines are, and they know that if one of the first things you put into a new community, let's say like Mernda, is a pub with 60 poker machines, you will create, I suppose, some product loyalty to those over a period of time, while there is no competition for other leisure activities. And that certainly happened in Epping when the poker machines were first introduced. It was a relatively new suburb that had been developed and populated over a period of time. So, and it's also placed in the shopping centre, which I think research as well has shown the most profitable venues in Australia are the ones that are in shopping centres.
So you might be shopping and go past it.
Absolutely. And that sort of leads to what I think is becoming more starkly obvious at the moment is the normalisation of gambling in our community. I think I've got a 4-year-old son, and I can't watch the footy on a Saturday afternoon with him because I'm concerned about the exposure to gambling and the normalisation of gambling. At times when you should be able to sit down with your young son or daughter and watch a game of footy or a TV show without being fearful that he or she's been indoctrinated by the exposure to something which they should not be exposed to at that young age, at impressionable age.
You're watching The World from Below, and we'll be back after this short break to discuss what we can do to prevent some of the harm done by problem gambling.